welcome. It is really delightful to see so many of you here to celebrate and discuss a recently published book entitled Gender Equality, Dimensions of Women's Equal Citizenship. This book has been co-edited by our own faculty member, Joanna Grossman, and by Professor Linda McClain, who some of you will know used to be a faculty member here and was a faculty member here for many years and is now the Paul M. Siskind Research Scholar at Boston University School of Law. In broad brush, the book considers questions of gender identity through the lens of equal citizenship. So what it does is it asks basic questions. What does it mean to be an equal citizen? To what extent have women achieved equal citizenship? And what obstacles account for the gaps between formal commitments to gender equality and the persistence of many forms of gender inequality in our society and in other societies around the globe? Now, I don't think I need to tell you that this is a timeless issue. Unfortunately, I have to say, it is a timeless issue. While many claim we live in a post-gender society, I think you all know that gender issues are still everywhere. Women still get paid less than men, and we don't have a good explanation for that anymore. Stereotypes about women abound. You just have to think about the constant conversations about what it is that women wear. I don't think menswear actually fills that many journal pages anywhere. You also realize that women remain sorely underrepresented in positions of power. It seems that perhaps a third woman on the U.S. Supreme Court is one too many. It also is kind of really stark how few women serve in the United States Senate. I don't have to tell you that only 5% of managing partners in this country's law firms are women, and corporate boards have to this day very few women. Now, we all know that this is not the only country that faces these challenges, but I should also add that the gender gap in this country, globally seen, is actually increasing, and the United States has fallen in what's called the gender index from rank 23 to 31 in the last year. Now, Professor Joanna Grossman and Professor Linda McClain have argued that women's rights are the cause of our time, and I think they're absolutely right about that.
The impetus for the conference was this perception that even though we live at a time in which in most nations, there's a formal commitment at least in some founding documents, be it constitutions or civil rights statutes or whatever, to the equal citizenship of women and men and to norms of sex equality, and yet there are many forms of persistent sex inequality, whether that be due to religious norms or family law systems or cultural obstacles or the like. There's still a sort of gender gap in the daily lives of women and men. And it was our idea to address this through the lens of citizenship. And when we use the word citizenship, obviously one meaning that comes to mind is just formal status. Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a Canadian citizen? Are you a Mexican citizen, for example? What is your formal status in a country? But we also use the term citizenship in a broader way that's more inclusive and aspirational to go to the full status one has within a society in terms of benefits, duties, obligations, rights and responsibilities. In the United States, obviously, a paradigm case of inequality has been race. And we have constitutional amendments directly addressing the exclusion of African Americans from citizenship. And that's a very important continuing paradigm case, even as formal obstacles to inequality have been removed. Another story of inequality, of course, is women's citizenship. There you have the paradox that women were formally citizens of the United States, at least free women or white women, and yet were not equal citizens in terms of having access to the vote, having access to a lot of the daily rights and responsibilities of civic life. And so women's citizenship is sort of a lens into the question of what equality really means. And so this book uses the term citizenship in this aspirational, inclusive way.
So the question that I came out this book with is probably the question that they wanted people to come out this book with, which is, why citizenship? What does it add to thinking about gender and gender inequality? And to be honest, I confess to having some ambivalence at times, at least before approaching this book, maybe a lesser extent afterwards, but some ambivalence about what citizenship adds to this. It's one of those umbrella terms like discourse or equal concern that can contain so much that I think you do have to ask, is citizenship furthering the analysis of gender and inequality, and if so, how? Or is it the latest catchword for talking about equality? And so one of the chapters in the book by Martha Feynman, which I think is really sort of a centerpiece of thinking about this question, one of the questions that she asks really resonated with me. She said that she was tempted to ask whether adding citizenship in this way conceptually detracts from or constrains a discussion of equality. And her point was that equality should be more expansive than citizenship, should go beyond the boundaries of the nation state and into the realm of universal human rights. And she made the point that the modification of citizenship with equality is somewhat redundant. If citizenship itself is about belonging on full terms, maybe equality is just synonymous with citizenship.
So in taking this broad and expansive concept of citizenship, they're looking at it really in terms of how it's fulfilling the democratic and egalitarian aspirations. And at the same time, they took a very expansive definition of citizenship, or give you quite a few different definitions. And so the one that I liked the best was looking at it not just as a bundle of rights, but really of expectations and preconditions. And those expectation and preconditions are what I thought I would focus on a little bit today in giving you my lens of the book. And that is really looking at citizenship as a notion of, as Judith Sklar, they cite, sees as standing, and also as Kenneth Cart sees as citizenship as belonging. So really that's the big question, is how do we belong? How do women belong? How do we belong as citizens? Another way of looking at this, so I would think an even more productive way, and this is because their book is not just, and this is why I say it's so inclusive and so exceptionally broad, and that is because there are a lot of people within the book that are arguing with each other. And so I found that really fascinating, because on one hand it's a theme, but on the other hand there are lots of people that are disagreeing with one another. And so I thought that maybe they would want to take a different aspect to citizenship. And that aspect would be, or this is one way to read the book, which is that there are multiple cultures that are engendering, producing, and constructing citizenship. So instead of looking at these 5 dimensions of citizenship, you could say instead it's really why it is that within liberal democratic cultures, as well as some global cultures, women don't belong. Women don't have standing. And so here you have, of course, in the beginning, the constitutional essays, one of those that was highlighted was what Deborah highlighted as well, was Roger Smith's essay in which he's showing that facially neutral laws don't trigger, heightened scrutiny, so even though there's disparate impact.
On one side of the framework, citizenship facilitates closer scrutiny, not only those who are considered members, but also what rights and privileges are accorded to those members. Unequal rights and privileges accorded to women, put simplistically, as the various essays argued, reveals their unequal citizenship. On the other side of the paradigm figures the limits of citizenship. Citizenship by its nature can be exclusionary, as the editors themselves acknowledge in the introduction, and thus those who are considered non-members would not be accorded rights and privileges. The authors complicate this tension between exclusion and inclusion at various points in the book, which makes the book a wonderful way of critiquing the law as well as social policy. In my remarks for today, and because of limited time, I would like to focus my remarks on one dimension of equal citizenship featured in the book, that of constitutional citizenship. Here, as the authors explained, the central aim of that section of the book is to consider the, quote, role that constitutions play in fostering women's equal citizenship and forbidding discrimination based on sex.